We would like to continue the program. And if you don't come back to your seats, I'm going to start singing up here, and you don't like that. Good morning. Please come back to your desks. We would like to continue the program. Please come back to your seats. Good morning. We're about to restart the program. Please report to your seats.
All right, we have about 20 seconds, then we're going to start. So this is pretty cool. I told you I'll take 5 or 6 minutes. We actually gave you 10. So everybody did pretty well. You're all back in your seats for the most part. A few stragglers that are coming in the room, but I know there's probably a line at the coffee pot. But great to have everybody back. We're going to shift our attention a little bit now in this next section of the program. We've been talking about supplier diversity and efforts to use a Rooney Rule approach to improve the diversity of suppliers, and some great advice and observations from some companies that have really made some significant progress since we started this whole thing about 5 years ago. But our next section is really focused on creating and sustaining inclusive workplace cultures. And we're very pleased to have with us to kick things off Evan Frazier, who's the Senior Vice President at Highmark Health. Evan's been thinking long and hard about just a reality in our region that there are fewer African American professionals at the most senior ranks of corporate leadership throughout Pittsburgh, especially compared to the way it was 15, 20 years ago. I remember when I was working for KDKA back in the 90s, you would run into African American executives, C-level executives at different companies around town. And they just don't seem to be there in as great a supply as was the case 20 years ago. Evan thinks he's come up with a solution that over time is actually going to help this region do something about it. And so here to tell us more before he has to jump on a plane, I guess, and head for the West Coast or wherever he's headed, Evan Frazier from Highmark. Come on up.
Thanks so much. Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Evan Frazier. I'm very proud to be here. Most of you know my role as Senior Vice President of Community Affairs for Highmark Health, and some of my colleagues are here today. You heard from Karen Hanlon earlier today, but you probably know Bob James and Lonnie Haynes. many others who I know are very supportive. But I'm not here today to really talk about that. I'm actually here in a slightly different capacity, really looking at one of the important needs of our region. So what I'm about to share with you is not a specific corporate initiative tied to our organization, but it really is meant to be a regional initiative. And so I want to thank Tim Stevens. You will always and forever be my favorite singing civil rights activist, former volunteer director, church organist in America Today. Always. So thank you for this opportunity to share and to talk about hopefully a bright future for our region. As you can see, it's titled the Advanced Leadership Initiative, and it deals with promoting and developing African American executives in the greater Pittsburgh region. As all of you know, Pittsburgh, has rebounded from the industrial decline. You heard the mayor was here earlier. I'm sure he shared the same sentiment. And while we've done so well as a city, all the sectors have not prospered equally. And we're all very painfully aware of that. In the city of Pittsburgh, there are predominantly 24% African Americans in the city of Pittsburgh. If you look at the region as a whole, it's about 13%. But when you look at executive leadership, it's estimated to be less than 0.1%. We have a long way to go. I couldn't have said it better than what Bill Flanagan said in the introduction, which is years ago, you could point to almost any company in our region, and there were, African American executives at the highest level. We don't see that here today. We've lost a lot of ground in the last 15, 20 years. And so my hope is that we can find a way to address this issue in the best way possible. Of course, this is preaching to the choir, but diversity is absolutely a key to our future success, both socially and economically. I can't say enough about how the future hinges on our ability to address this issue of diversity effectively. So let's talk about the need. Very fortunate. In fact, as I look across this room, I see a number of people who were part of discussions that resonated around this idea of what are we going to do to address the issue of African American leadership and what's the impact of that. There were a lot of discussions over the recent years, and it really helped to evolve to the point of, what are we going to do to really develop the talent pipeline? What are we going to do to address the environment here in our region that will help African Americans be successful at the highest levels? So as we talk about TALI, which just stands for the Advanced Leadership Initiative, it really deals with this idea of what can we do in developing world-class education and training. What can we do to address the unique challenges faced by African American leaders in the workplace? And then, how do we partner with the right individuals and institutions that will help this to be successful? And so that really is the question as we start to evolve. Again, I look across this audience, I see people who have been a part of the evolution of this idea since the very inception, and I'm just grateful to have the opportunity to share this with you guys. So the vision is this. We want to dramatically improve the regional presence of African Americans in executive, corporate, and nonprofit leadership roles, helping to create a more diverse, inclusive, and prosperous community. So that's the vision. And so the mission then becomes, how do we, it becomes building a continuous pipeline of African American leaders positioned to add significant value to their organizations and to the community through participation in world-class leadership development, uniquely designed to give African Americans the tools, exposure, and training necessary to maximize success in the greater Pittsburgh region. This is not meant to be a remedial program. This is an advancement program. This is designed to be something that will help to help really build the future. So we determined that there are three primary core elements for success. One is, how do we position and anchor it? We felt that it was needed to be anchored through world-class academics. There needed to be a community advisor connection to make sure that we're continuing to address the right needs that we face both in the workplace, not only just for corporate roles, but in the nonprofit sector as well. But we also felt it was critical that we had strong corporate partners. You know, after all, you could do all the training in the world, but if you don't have the right corporate partners who are embracing this concept and this idea, you know, it won't matter, right? So let's start out here. I'm very pleased to be able to share that the Tepper School at Carnegie Mellon, their School of Business, they have an amazing track record. They have truly emerged and embraced this idea. As a former trustee at Carnegie Mellon, I had the opportunity to get to know Dean Bob Damon, and through conversations initially starting there, and then of course Leanne Meyer, who is one of the director in their executive education, they really got behind this idea to say, how can we help to make this program successful, this initiative successful? As you know, Carnegie Mellon had many different programs that they offer through executive education. One is really focused in on women's leadership. And so what they've created is this idea of taking the Advanced Leadership Initiative, creating the Carnegie Mellon Advanced Leadership Academy that would help us to make this a reality. And so Leanne, I know, is here. I saw her. She's around here somewhere. And I know we're represented by many folks from Carnegie Mellon here today. But I can't say enough about the way that they really jumped in to be a part of this in an important way. And yes, absolutely. And as you see this image up on the screen, this is an image of the new Tepper School building, which is being built right on Forbes. And it's just about, well, in the next year it'll be ready. So our goal is to be able to launch this as that building is built, so that this Advanced Leadership Academy could be a part of the new building, the new structure. So Carnegie Mellon, in their vision, and partnered with the Advanced Leadership Initiative, developed this idea that really there are three core lenses. One is research-driven curriculum, executive coaching, and professional sponsorship. Just imagine if we have people going through, every person going through a particular curriculum would be able to have a 360-degree evaluation, receive an executive coach, someone who understands diversity in the workplace, but can help provide great guidance from a professional standpoint. And then everyone would also receive a professional sponsor, so regionally, that would be here in our region. And so those are the three core elements that we are looking at in this particular academic program. So research-driven curriculum, there's part of the curriculum that deals with mastering critical skills, similar to a traditional business program, business MBA program. But then there's also those skills that directly apply specifically to the unique African American experience. Very often, I know in my life, I've done quite a bit of training, but they never specifically deal with the issues that we face, right, in the workplace. And this is a particular curriculum that would pay attention to that, understand it, pull resources from around the country and from CMU that would help to make sure we have a clear view of how we're viewed within this world and how do we navigate successfully. You can see on the right, right now we talked about there being 8 modules, 8-month program. Strategic leadership, change management, operational excellence, collaboration and partnerships, people leadership, financial management, governance and civic leadership, and then executive presence. So we talked about the executive coaching, and again, everyone would receive a personal coach for the entire 8-month period of time, giving direct insight about their specific situation and in the workplace, and providing accountability as we talked about here. And this is probably one of the most key parts, which is this idea of professional sponsorship. You know, as I said before, you know, there are a number of folks we have in our community that the reality is, in order to break through, you can't break through the glass ceiling that exists out there without professional sponsorship. And that's one of the things that we found really does lack in our region, professional sponsorship for African Americans. And now we have this little box on the right-hand side here that talks about mentorship versus sponsorship. How many people hear about, you know, needing mentors all the time? Is that, you hear that often, right? And that's true, you do need mentors. But we're not saying mentorship is what's lacking. We're saying what's lacking is sponsorship. And here's the difference. A mentor offers advice and guidance to support desired career goals, whereas a sponsor will hold an influential, high-level role within the organization and can openly advocate on behalf of the person. So that's part of what is missing. And so I do need to say that this is a critical component. There are some initiatives out there. Greg Spencer, he was doing a project with Be Me. He's a Be Me leader and had received an award to do some work around this idea of professional sponsorship. And so we have partnered and collaborated with Greg, and Greg is going to be able to help from the work that he's doing to help inform the Advanced Leadership Initiative as an ongoing part of the process. So Greg, thank you for what you're doing out there. So who should attend this? This is designed for 20 participants annually. And just imagine, over 10 years, we would have 200 highly trained people who are plugged into the region like we are not today. We believe that that'll have a really profound impact. Both people who are both in the corporate sector as well as in the nonprofit sector would be eligible. As you can see the requirements on the right, I would imagine that most people have 10 to 15 years of experience already, but the minimum would be 5 years. Academic and professional experience, we believe, is going to be important to be able to take advantage of this particular initiative. And again, we're looking at an 8-month program at present moment. Advisory Council, we have an advisory council that would emerge, and the role of the advisory council would be to make sure we maintain the integrity of the vision, the mission, the measurement of success. And so there are a number of people who are in this room and outside of this room that I know would be a part of that. Want to also just acknowledge Kenya, who's one of the people who is very much a part of the planning and development, and I want to thank her for her leadership and many others who are a part of this room. In corporate partnership, this doesn't work without corporate partnership. In order to make this program initiative successful, it needs to be long-term. We're looking at a 10-year, at least a 10-year model. But corporate partnership is critical. We're very fortunate. I know you'll hear from Dennis Yablonsky later today. But through the Allegheny Conference, we've been in a number of conversations. Dennis, Catherine DeLuckery, and Bill Flanagan. We've started the dialogue around that to look at how the Allegheny Conference can be one of the critical partners in order to be able to lock down sponsorship, professional sponsorship, and be able to embed this initiative in the right way here in our region. So I'm so excited for that and very grateful. And let me just say, these are the expected outcomes. We expect that more African Americans in corporate and nonprofit leadership roles will be what happens as a result of this initiative. We believe that African Americans running nonprofits will be more successful. We believe that there will be a greater number of African Americans on corporate and nonprofit boards. And then ultimately, over 5 years, 5 to 10 years, we think there's going to be a noticeable change in recognition of Pittsburgh as a diverse and inclusive place to be. And so, as you could see, the others are just other types of things that we believe this type of initiative will foster. And with that being said, I think I have run out of time. But, but again, thank you for the time to share with you today. We're very excited about what's going to emerge here, and as we finalize the details and the business plan associated with this, we hope that you all will support it as well. Thank you so much.
Evan, thank you so much. We know you have a plane to catch, so we appreciate you taking a little bit of extra time and bringing us up to speed on this effort. It could be really important, I think, to the region. You know, as Evan mentioned and I noted, back in the 90s, we did see a lot of African American faces at the sea level in Pittsburgh, and I kind of wondered, well, why would that change? Why would we get to that point as a community and then we kind of backslide a little bit? And so one thing my colleague Catherine DeLuckery at the Allegheny Conference has done in the last several months, as she's been working on our economic inclusion work, was go back in the archives of the conference and try to see what had the organization done over the course of the past decades in this space. And we've talked a lot about Dan Rooney this morning, rightly so, but there's another figure in our history who we also lost this spring, who also should be called out, and that's actually Henry Hillman. We went back 45 years ago to the 1972 annual report of the Allegheny Conference that was co-authored by Mr. Hillman and Jack Hines, at the time the CEO of the H.J. Hines Company. And they detailed a program that the conference launched after 1968, after the King assassination and all the riots and issues here in Pittsburgh, an ambitious program that put thousands of African Americans to work, that invested in startup businesses, really trying to work on the minority supply chain, that led to 25 years of concerted effort by the Allegheny Conference to try to do something to address the issues that had led to all the unrest after the assassination of Dr. King. And so I'm guessing, I don't know this, and unfortunately Mr. Hillman and Mr. Hines are gone and we can't ask them anymore. I'm guessing that by, the 80s or 90s, it looked like what they had been doing was sort of paying off. And when you feel like you've made it, maybe you can dial back a little bit. And yet the reality is, when you feel like you've made it, that's when you need to double down. That's when you need to realize we got to push it now over the top. And so I'm hopeful that 50 years is a long enough time to finally decide we're going to double down and we're going to put this over the top as a community. We owe it to ourselves and we owe it to our friends and neighbors to make that happen. I don't want to speak on Dennis's behalf, but I know all of us who work at the Allegheny Conference want to do our part to see if we can finally make this happen and live out the legacy that Mr. Hillman and Mr. Hines tried to get us started and finish that journey that they started us on almost 50 years ago. One of the places and one of the areas in our region that's made some enormous progress, and they don't always get the credit they should for the effort, is the building trades and trying to diversify the opportunity in the trades. And I don't know how familiar all of you are with the IBEW Local 5 here in Pittsburgh, but it is truly globally recognized for its training and its philosophy about how to prepare people to build everything that's all around us here. It's an amazing story. And we're really pleased today to have several representatives from the trades and Local 5 in particular to talk about opportunities in education and in the skilled trade unions. And so I'm going to read off their names all at once. They're all going to come up here and tell you a little bit about the work they're doing. Walter Bentley, the Minority and Diversity Recruiting Specialist for the Joint Apprenticeship Training Committee for Local 5. Jeff Nobers, who's the relatively new Executive Director of the Builders Guild of Western Pennsylvania. Letitia Fedora, General Manager of Great Service Forums, but more importantly, a proud electrical union member. And Aaron Brooks, a journeyman wireman with IBEW Local Union 5. Please welcome them.
Okay. Good. Go ahead, Walt, please.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Walt Bentley. I'm an electrician for Local 5, and right now I'm the Recruitment and Diversity Specialist for the local in our Joint Apprenticeship Committee. And we have made big strides into make sure that everyone is included. My job was created to make sure that we go out into the community and let the community know that Local 5, the electricians local, and all the other trade unions are looking for good people, good qualified people, and that's what I do. I go to schools, I go to trade schools, I go to high schools, I go to grade schools. I'm going to a luncheon program up on the north side later this week, and the kids are like between the ages of 3 and 18. But the thing is, you have to plant the seed early to let young people know you must go ahead and do everything your teachers are saying, get your English and your math, all your academic skills done, because the apprenticeships, they're like going to college. As a matter of fact, our apprenticeship program, you end up with a college degree from CCAC at the end of your career. Well, not the end of your career, but at the end of your apprenticeship. It's a 2-year degree in electrical construction technology, which allows people to go into 4-year degrees and even further. I mean, we have people who have become teachers. And it's because they started out as electrician apprentice, and decided, okay, I want to go back to school and get my 4-year degree. So it works out really well. And I just want to say that I've had a great career. I've had a great career in this program. I started in 1977 as an apprentice, and I've seen a lot of changes. And I've seen a lot of good things, and I've seen some bad things, but you know what? There's more good than bad. And one of the things that I noticed lately is when I'm out recruiting, that a lot of our young people in our African American group do not have driver's license. That's a major thing. And it's a barrier that's holding people back. Because the barrier of ban the box, we've been really proactive about that for years. And but the whole thing is driver's license are very important in the construction trade unions, because you have to go from job to job to job. And we hate to use it as a barrier, but we want our apprentices to be successful because they're our investment. So, I'm going to move on.
Thanks, Walt. My name's Jeff Nobers. I'm the Executive Director of the Builders Guild of Western Pennsylvania. We're a labor management group, so my membership and board is comprised of both business agents from the 16 construction trade unions here in Western Pennsylvania, as well as the owners of large general construction firms, as well as specialty construction firms. So we have a unique viewpoint and working relationship as it really relates to workforce development. And I think the biggest issue when we hear about workforce development a lot, and the Shell cracker plant and the petroleum industry and manufacturing and technically skilled positions that are going to become available over the next 7 to 10 years. And if you just take the Shell plant as an example, we're probably still 12 to 18 months away from the full-scale construction on that plant. And we're looking 4 years or better down the road before people start to work there. And those are not all college degree positions. Many of them can be associate degrees, a lot of lab technicians and things of that nature. The reality is the construction trades need people today. Our workforce development isn't 4 years from now or 2 years from now. It's today. We have some of our unions are literally maxed out at this point, and we haven't even scratched the surface of what's coming here in this region. There's at least one, if not two more cracker plants being looked at on a regional basis. There's the petroleum, or not the petroleum, the liquid natural gas storage facilities that are being looked at, which would serve as a significant hub for the Northeast United States. Add to that the hospital construction, the academic construction, all the other infrastructure construction going on. And we're looking at a market where if you got into the construction trades now, you're set up for the next 20 to 30 years. This is not going to slow down. And I think the one other point to make is that by coming into the construction trades, I think there remains a viewpoint that these are somehow not worthy jobs or that you can make a career. These are highly skilled jobs. To be an electrician, I mean, think about it yourself. Are you going to go into your house today and start doing electrical work? Unless you want it to burn down tonight, you're probably not. You need somebody like Walt, who is, a highly experienced professional. And the same goes with carpentry or plumbing, operating engineers, the folks that run the big heavy equipment. They don't have to know how to use the levers so much as they have to know how to program software into the computers on board the machinery and plug in all the GPS coordinates. It's like being a pilot on a 737. They're there to monitor the machine. And the apprenticeship schools are very, very competitive. But there's no cost for those schools. The unions and the general contractors pay for the education. About $10,000 a year per person, over $30 million a year that we spend to train folks to come into the construction trades. So this is truly a career people can embrace. And I think the biggest issue, as Walt said, that we face are two things: driver's license and making sure kids are learning reading and math skills, because that's what we need. And you can have an exceptionally lucrative career in the trades.
Hi. I just want to give you a little bit of perspective as a woman in the trades and where it can lead you, because I think there is a lot more opportunity than just being a tradesperson out in the field. And I had to sit here and chuckle a little bit with all the talk about the airport, because as an apprentice, that was one of the first jobs that I was on. So it always holds a special place in my heart that I actually got to work on the airport. As a woman coming into the trade, I think the important thing is that we need to give our girls a very strong background in math. And we also need to give them the skills to understand that it's a non-traditional workplace and what that entails. We do a lot of recruiting for minorities and for women in the trades, and the retention rate for women is extremely low. And it's because women get into the trades and don't understand the obstacles that they'll face. They don't understand the mentality and the work ethics that are expected in the trades. And so I think if we can build our girls up to understand that those things are required, they can end up in a position that's extremely good for them. I put 2 girls through college. I have a son still at home. I make more money than my girls who went to college, who are very talented at their jobs. it speaks to the trades that we work hard and we make good money. We have good benefits, and it's a great place for a woman to be because of that. But the other thing that happens in the trade is you have other skills that you learn and develop that you don't even realize. And so as a foreman running work, I learned a lot of organizational skills. I learned a lot of people skills that I had brought with me from a previous career. And I ended up in a position with a company called Great Service Forums. I'm now doing training and networking for electrical contractors, service management personnel. So a career in the trades doesn't end with the trades. A career in the trades ends up where you want it to end up. There are just so many opportunities. We have women that are service managers in companies. We have women that are working as estimators, women that are working as project managers. So there is a lot of opportunity to develop beyond the trade and into where you want to be. I really encourage women to become involved in the trades, and I think that if anybody ever has any questions about women coming into the trades, they should get a hold of Walt, because he knows the people to put you in touch with and who to talk to. But I really encourage people to look into the trades.
How you doing? I'm here. I'm also, I've benefited from the trades, being an electrician, a journeyman wireman. IBW has been looking to reach out and diversify because, you know, getting into the unions in the early days, you weren't related to somebody, you probably weren't going to get in sometimes. Before I got into the trades, I was in a little bit of trouble. Spent some time up in upstate maximum security prisons, and how I benefited is the local giving me a second chance. I was a single father. I had a kid in CYF, and you know, when I came home, you know, I was mopping floors and cleaning bathrooms, living in a depressed neighborhood, drugs being sold outside my house every night. A lot of crime. And I got into the trade and going through the apprenticeship, and a couple years later, I was able to move into my own home, move my kid out of where we were, and things have been great now. You know, I got good health care, a good benefits package, pension, and a great career job. So that is one of the problems, the issues we have, you know, when we're trying to diversify. A lot of us guys, sometimes we come with a criminal background, and sometimes we're just looking for a second chance. You never know where it might lead. So, you know, as you can see, I'm kind of nervous being up here. But all I can say is it's just been great getting a second chance. You know, some of us are just forced to work off of an ex-con list and just survive and stay out of trouble. And you know, I got a career job. You know, I'm not just surviving. You know, me and my family are living and enjoying benefits. So also as a way to give back, I've wrote a book about it. It's called Through the Test of Time. If anybody would like any more information about it, talk to me after we leave here.
Well, I think that's a critical thing, what Aaron said too, is, and Walt alluded to it. Your past and background is not going to be a barrier for the construction trades, and that goes across the board to all 16 unions as well as the contractors. As silly as it sounds, the only thing that's going to keep you from being able to pursue that is a driver's license and a means of transportation. And there's a lot of folks I talk to, because you know, Walt and I do a lot of career fairs together, and you'll talk to fellas, and hey, they're good people. Whatever happened in their life. You know, it's time to move on and have that chance, but they won't have a driver's license for 3 or 4 years. And some people don't have them because they owe child support. So my question is, how are you supposed to work to earn enough money to pay the child support if the state won't let you have your driver's license so you can drive to a job to work? So it's, I think these are some of the issues that as a region, as community leaders, as elected officials, that we need to address at a different level, which is the state. Whether you lost your license over DUI, or it was a drug possession thing, or it's because you owe child support, there have to be some accommodations made for restricted licenses. And I know there's some programs, but I've talked to these guys, and aside from the fact that it may cost them thousands of dollars, it takes months and months and months, if not years, to get through that process. So I think we just have to look at ways, if we want people to improve themselves, if we want to give people the opportunity, then we have to remove those types of barriers that really are nonsense in many respects.
Yes, and like Jeff was saying, that's one of the bigger areas we've had problems with recruiting, the driver's license. But the other thing, we need to prepare our children through the City of Pittsburgh school district system for the trade jobs that are out there, because it's like winning a scholarship. I feel like I won the Willy Wonka Prize when I got in this program because I've done a lot of great things in my life, and my family's taken care of, and our health care is second to none because we can use UPMC and Highmark. Okay. But thank you so much for your time.
All right, thanks to all of you. Great discussion, some great ideas, inspiration, and a great tee up to our next segment, talking about the Pittsburgh Public Schools. But before I introduce our next speakers, I do want to, on Evan Frazier's behalf, acknowledge Max King from the Pittsburgh Foundation, who you will hear from later on this morning. Max was really an early supporter of Evan's effort to launch the Advanced Leadership Initiative. Evan felt very guilty that he didn't mention Max when he was up here, so I promised Max that I would thank you so much on his behalf for your support. Yeah, well, that's what he was afraid of. It would cost him. But thank you so much. And it's not, Max, it's leadership and it's his thoughtfulness and thinking through these issues and how to make them real that has made such a difference to our region for so many years. And I hope everybody's planning to stay around to the end of the program because Max is going to wrap things up for us today. And I know I'm looking forward to that. As Walt mentioned, a big part of the strategy or the opportunity here around getting more minorities involved in the construction trades is working with the Pittsburgh Public Schools and to try to make that happen. And so here from the Office of the Superintendent of the Pittsburgh Public Schools are Angela Mike, the Executive Director of Career and Technical Education, and Dara Ware Allen, Assistant Superintendent with support services with the district. I think I botched that, but at any rate, come on up.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Angela Mike, and as was said, I am the Executive Director of Career and Technical Education for Pittsburgh Public Schools. The goal of Career and Technical Education is to prepare our students for career pathways into the global market. We want to make sure our students are prepared to take advantage of the inflection report that was put out by the Chamber. Allegheny Chamber said there's going to be over 80,000 jobs possibly without folks to fill them. That's something to think about. Well, we have a direct connection to those students early, and our goal is to make sure that they're going to be able to take advantage of those job openings. We want to help to create the pipeline. Well, how are we doing that in career and technical education? We have over 15 programs. Used to be called vocational education. But we want to get away from that. We are the new career and technical education, and I was so happy to hear when Jeff was up here and he said, these are highly skilled jobs. That was the best thing I heard all week. Because it's known, or was known, that the perception was, oh, put the kids in those jobs who just want to use their. That's not the case. They're using their brains and their hands. Two things. So they're highly skilled, the jobs are high wage, and they're in high demand. These 15 programs that we have, I'll just name a couple. We have carpentry, we have HVAC, we have health careers. We also have a coding program, an IT program, entertainment technology and emergency response technology at Westinghouse High School, which was new this year, we just opened. We were able to do that with a partnership with the city of Pittsburgh. If you haven't seen any of our programs or you don't know we exist, because some people think that vocational or the new career in tech went away in Pittsburgh public schools. However, it didn't. It's alive and well. Please go on our website. We have a virtual tour that will take you inside of every lab in our building. And then you will be able to see that we have very, very high-tech equipment in those programs, and our students are preparing for the workforce. I have to say that partnerships are key. Without the community, without industry and business, we won't survive. We have to be directly connected to industry and business. Our partners help us to make sure that we are current. We are making sure that students are coming out with the credentials that they need to move into jobs and post-secondary education. Also, our partners provide internships, job shadowing opportunities. It gets the students on the job site to see what opportunities are available. So as I said before, please keep in mind it's rigorous. Students in Pittsburgh Public Schools in grades 10 through 12 make a serious commitment to be in these programs. 3 years, 3 periods a day. They do leave with industry certifications, stackable industry certifications. Last year, we had students leave with over 300 certifications in Pittsburgh Public Schools. So they were well prepared. They also left with post-secondary credits. We're fortunate to have support of the Pittsburgh Promise, and our students are able to take post-secondary college classes prior to leaving high school. So they're not just leaving with the industry certs, but for those who want to also go on to post-secondary, they're leaving with a jump start on their career. I'll leave with saying, before I call up Dr. Allen, again, the career and technical education programs in Pittsburgh are preparing students to go into positions or jobs that are high demand, high skill, and high wage. And I also appreciate when they talked about for females, males, and those of color. It's available to all students in Pittsburgh Public Schools. Our career and technical education programs, the application process is open to all students. There is also not a grade point average connected, because what we found out is once some students get into our programs, they soar. The academics go up along with the skill level. So thank you, and please check out the virtual tour on Pittsburgh Public Schools website. Thank you. Now call up Dr. Allen.
Thank you, Ms. Mike. I'll be very brief. As Ms. Mike talked about the career and technical opportunities that are available in our high schools, most of them begin in 10th grade, some in 9th grade. Angela and I have had a partnership as it relates to what does a comprehensive approach look like in terms of preparing our students earlier. So I just want to tell you about some of our efforts that are underway about exposure, career education exposure beginning in elementary school, so the students will be be empowered to make more informed choices about what they want to pursue, and that we help to equip them to be able to pursue those aspirations. Not just from the solid academics, which clearly we need, and we heard that from our panel about the kinds of high-skilled jobs that are in our trades and in other industries. So we want to make sure we have a solid academic foundation for our students. But really, students, it's hard for them to aspire to careers that they have not yet seen. And so that's where we have a commitment and a responsibility, and I do see it as a social justice issue in making sure that that happens systemically within our district, not just for some of our students, but that students get baseline exposure experiences throughout their career in Pittsburgh Public Schools. So I'll just tell you about our comprehensive guidance plan. Some of you may be aware of it, as it is a state requirement. It's been an unfunded mandate, but we are doing it not just because it is something that we're required to do, but morally it's what we should be doing. Like I said, in terms of making sure that all of our students get a level of exposure experiences, an opportunity to try out and pursue different pathways while they're in school, to be able to take advantage of CTE or magnet theme or certain AP classes. That's what our job is, to make sure that we equip them to be able to do that. So our guidance plan, it includes various elements related to career lessons, not just in career, but around academic, personal, and social, but then also around individual success planning, which is something that we are really excited about, but it takes a lot of work when you think about the number of students that we have for the number of counselors and social workers. And so that is an ongoing effort in trying to build more space for our counseling staff to be able to have one-on-one conversations and groups with students about what some of their interests are, and opportunity for them to test out those skills. And so we're very pleased that that our new superintendent, Dr. Anthony Hamlet, has made an investment in assuring more of those kinds of supports in terms of adding additional positions that will be able to streamline some of the routine items that counselors and social workers often are bogged down with, that they'll be able to have more of the time with students to have the counseling conversations to help get them on the track. And we can't do without partners. We see some of the folks that are on our Guidance Advisory Council. Angela also convenes a business advisory council that includes folks from the trades as well as from other business areas. And so our students can't explore if we don't have businesses and organizations that step up like those of you in the room. So I know our time is running out. Angela and I will be here a little bit longer. Please see us if you're interested in learning more about the work or directly interested in providing an exposure experience. Thank you.
Angela, thank you so very much. I've been watching the schedule, and you may all have noticed, based on your agenda, we are starting to drift a little bit in terms of time. And in the interest of the health of our timekeeper, because I'm really worried about his blood pressure, I would really like everybody who's speaking from this point forward to be brisk and high energy, but let's plow on, because we want to try to get the rest of the program but we do have, fortunately, people from both Highmark and UPMC in the room, so if it gets to be too much for you, you're going to be well taken care of. But I'd rather not put them to work that way and keep them focused on the purpose of this event, right, which is to talk about equity and inclusion. And so with that, to introduce our next panel, I'd like to invite to the podium Tracy McCants-Lewis. She's Associate Clinical Professor and Interim Co-Director of the Duquesne University School of Law in the Department of Clinical Legal Education.
Good morning and welcome to Duquesne University. We are going to be speaking about Ban the Box. This topic is very timely in that we are now seeing a number of corporations, institutions that are now recognizing that someone having a criminal background and not being able to work, it's not just a social justice issue, but it's becoming an employment issue. It's an economic issue, and because it is an economic issue, more attention is being paid to it. While we were sitting here at 10:11 a.m., I received a email from the Federal Bar Association. There is going to be a CLE, which is a continuing legal education class for attorneys to recognize that criminal records and employment process and what can be done. So today we're going to have a very brief but enlightening conversation on Ban the Box. So I would like to invite up the panel. We have Khadijah Diggs, who is Assistant Counsel for the PA Governor's Office, Office of General Counsel. Charlene Holder, Supervisor of Talent Management for the City of Pittsburgh. Paul Lee, Masters of Social Work, Mental Health, Drug, and Alcohol Therapist. Dean Williams, who is the Executive Director of the formerly convicted Citizens Project. Amy Kroll, Administrator of Reentry Services for Allegheny County Jail. And Laura Zaspel, Human Resources Director for Allegheny County. please review their bios in your program booklet. So what is this ban the box thing? Ban the box is a system to delay review of one's criminal history until later in the application or hiring process. So what I'd like to begin with talking about, if we could look at the city of Pittsburgh, Allegheny County, and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and what they're doing with regard to ban the box. So I'd like to start with Laura, if you'd like to start.
Thank you. Thanks for having me this morning, being part of this important discussion, and hopefully it will be helpful if I take a little bit of time to talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts of operationalizing Ban the Box for Allegheny County, and it might help some other organizations that have been thinking about doing that. Not long after I started in my position several years ago, Chief Executive Fitzgerald, as he mentioned earlier, and the county senior leadership team made it clear that they were supportive of the Ban the Box initiative, and they asked me to determine potential implications for the county's hiring processes and to come up with a plan and some strategies and practices for implementing Ban the Box. And as a relatively decentralized organization, one of the county's challenges in adopting Ban the Box was really the fact that there was not a standardized, consistent background checking policy or procedure in place for any type of background checks that would ensure equal opportunity. Oh, sure, sorry. Equal opportunity, employment opportunity to persons with criminal convictions. Some departments did checks on all of their employees or prospective employees. Some did checks on some positions, and some departments didn't do checks on any positions at all. So we did agree at the time that in order to be able to take the criminal conviction question off of the employment application, we needed to develop a process that was consistent and fair and timely in making final employment decisions after it had been determined that the most qualified person for the position was fit to be hired. And we thought that consistency in policy was very important because the county does hire hundreds of employees every year. So we spent several months doing a lot of policy research. We did assessments of hiring processes throughout county departments. We looked at coordinating the logistics of actually running the checks and what type of checks needed to be run, and then of communicating with and training department leadership and staff involved in the hiring processes on the new policy and processes. So finally, our criminal history and background checks policy was adopted, and the box was banned on January 1st of 2015. Since that time, the Human Resources Department, and namely I have to call out Wallace Bright, who is our workforce diversity specialist and has a lot of responsibilities, now processes a whole lot of background checks, 1,775 to be exact since we started the program, have been run on candidates after they've been offered conditional employment. And of those 1,775 checks, 104 employees did come back with criminal records. That's approximately 6%, if our math is right, of the people that we were looking at as being the most qualified for positions. In each of those 104 cases of criminal records, we looked at the criminal convictions of those candidates through an individual assessment, looking at that in the context of the relevancy of the background or of the offense to the position, of the recency, and just a lot of other factors in the employment's background. And as a result, 85 of those 104 were ultimately offered employment. So we can say that approximately 82% do have jobs. So I can say with great confidence that the initiation of Ban the Box has been a very positive process for Allegheny County, both from the perspective of forcing us to develop more consistent and equitable hiring policies, and practices, as well as just from the business advantages that we're realizing as an organization in hiring qualified and motivated individuals who are deserving of employment opportunities.
Great. Thank you so much, Laura. I'd like to move on to Charlene, if you could describe the City of Pittsburgh's efforts with regard to Ban the Box.
Okay. The City of Pittsburgh pretty much went through the same process as Laura spoke of, so we won't rehash the whole thing. City Council did put ours in place in December of 2012. We have been following the policies. We had to create new policies because of Ban the Box. Our whole application process was redone. We removed the criminal question, the felony conviction question off the application totally. Sorry. Once again, I can't. Just stand up. Yeah, so, you know, it improved the process. It allowed more people to feel comfortable with their applications. We removed the question. We had tons more applicants. To this day, we do not, I can honestly say, before we even banned the box, we were already giving people a second chance who had felony convictions. We didn't have to worry about, we weren't worried about the process of, are we going to be liable for something? Because we did our checks and balances. And then once we did remove the question from the application, we did more thorough checks as far as we had our OMI office, our Office of Municipal Investigations. In the beginning, they were doing the background checks. Now we have it contracted out. We have Justifax who takes care of that. So the process was pretty much the same as the county. We just approved it before the county did theirs.
Thank you, Charlene. Khadijah, May 5th, 2017, the governor's office announced their Fair Chance hiring. Could you explain and give us some details with regard to that initiative?
I can. So, same. City, county, state, same. The state's policy becomes effective July 1st of this year. It is initially with regard to non-civil service positions that we will be removing the criminal history question. The expectation is by the end of the year that policy will also apply to the civil service positions. So that's something that the state is running through the Office of Administration. And because we are the state, if it's something that you are interested in, call us, because we'll be glad to help you understand what we did, which was build on what the city and the county did. And we're pretty excited about it because I don't know if you recall, but this time last year, I was here introducing Secretary of Corrections John Wetzel, who spoke during this roundtable. And he was talking about 90% of the people who are incarcerated are expected to return home. So we have to be intentional about what are our expectations of their ability to succeed, as well as what are our expectations with our ability to sustain a safe public space. And a big part of that is sustainable employment. So this is the state's response to that, is the Fair Chance hiring process. And you may also have heard that very recently the governor's office, in conjunction with the Attorney General's office, created the Pennsylvania Reentry Council. Have any of you heard Pennsylvania Reentry Council? You have, good. I was scanning the audience when I was sitting up here because I was hoping that Tamara Collier was here. She's one of the key people who have been involved in reentry for some time locally, and she's one of the people that is on the Pennsylvania Reentry Council. So they had their first meeting in May. They will be meeting quarterly. It's an effort to sort of collaborate instead of having the fragmented pieces of reentry that go on across the state now. If you are interested in details on that, I'm saying Tamara's name because she's here as the reentry coordinator in the U.S. Attorney's Office, but also within the Attorney General's office, it's Robert K. Reed, who is the Executive Deputy Attorney General for Public Engagement, who's taking the lead on that reentry council. So I think we have figured out how critical this issue is, and we're making a concerted effort to be responsive to it. But the fact that you all have shown up and care about it means that you already know, you have dug in on the things that you are most knowledgeable about and care most deeply about, and you have to push your state representatives, including the governor, to make sure that they understand the details of why it's important and that they have the support to make the necessary changes to make it more impactful. Can I say one more thing and then I won't speak again?
Sure.
I'm really happy to be here. So Pittsburgh is home for me. Many of you might not know that 2 months ago I promoted from my deputy director for the Governor's Southwest Regional Office to assistant counsel in the Office of General Counsel, which means I'm living and working in Harrisburg now. So I'm happy to be up here and give like one big general. I'm so sorry that I left so quickly. I apologize I haven't returned your emails, but I don't get them anymore. When I moved from one Commonwealth job to another Commonwealth job, I got a new email address. Sorry.
Well, welcome back to Pittsburgh, Khadijah, for this time. We're glad to have you back. Looking at criminal history and the barriers that individuals face, there are several collateral consequences that come with having a criminal background. And in Pennsylvania, our laws with regard to expungement and even arrest records, if someone is arrested, it stays on their record until they can get it expunged or removed. And then there's the governor's pardon process, which is a long process. So I'd like to move on to Dean. Why is Ban the Box so important for individuals that do have a criminal background?
First of all, I'd like to say I'm extremely excited to be here because I was formerly Convicted Citizens Project in 2010 that started getting the ball rolling to get Ban the Box legislated in the city of Pittsburgh. We were able to successfully advocate for Ban the Box by utilizing expungement and pardon processes to get the population that have the records to advocate for themselves. And we also partnered with people I see here. Mr. Esther Bush from the Urban League and Tim Stevens from BPAP and several other organizations that supported us to help us to get Ban the Box legislation passed in the city of Pittsburgh. By 2013, I had a meeting with County Executive Rich Fitzgerald, who told me that he would do it by executive order. So it moved to the county, and now it's moving to the state. So this is pretty much snowball, but there are lots of people who are having this issue that can't find jobs, housing, or anything else, and it just makes it difficult for families to be able to provide for themselves. So this issue is probably one of the biggest issues in our region. And now we're not only holding expungement and pardon workshops, helping people to clean their records up, but we're looking for every job opportunity possible to give people a second chance. So this is vital for us to be able to, everybody in this room can do something about it. So we just need to be able to provide second chances, and you see the outcome of that through Aaron, some of the success he's had, and some of the success I've had. We often have people who are extremely motivated to move their lives forward and can be some of the best employees that you can get. So this is vital for our region to move on and help as many people as we can.
Thank you. Through the work that I've done here at Duquesne University School of Law, we see a number of individuals that want to move forward. So we've had opportunity to get their records expunged, get governor's pardons, but we're dealing with a lot of individuals that might be coming out of a correctional facility. So I'd like to move on to Amy Kroll, who is at Allegheny County Jail Reentry Services. What type of reentry services are you providing for individuals before they leave the institution?
We're really where the rubber meets the road. We churn in and out about 20,000 people a year in Allegheny County Jail. But on any given day in reentry services, we're working with about 400 to 500 individuals. Everything from them getting their high school diploma to actually learning a skill in the jail. 4 years ago, we actually started a machining program in the jail. that individuals can receive 2 national machining certifications in the jail. Also, as they move to our work release programs, they can go everything from a program that has culinary arts to roofing to welding. Now we partner with CCAC, and also for individuals in the trades, they are going to the Trade Institute to learn the beginning skills of what it's like to get into some type of the trades. All those industries are very forgiving of individuals with criminal records. We understand, though, we have to go even beyond that. And one of the biggest things is getting the legislator to remove that if you have a felony drug conviction that you lose your license for a year. Even if you're not in a car, you could lose your license for a year, which really impedes and restricts individuals that want those skilled, union jobs, but can't get to the work sites because of it. So we have gone very far with Ban the Box, but we have so much further to go for individuals involved in the criminal justice system to be able to get them a living wage.
Thank you, Amy. Now, 1 in 3 individuals in the United States has some type of criminal background. But we all know, sitting in this room, because again, we're speaking to the choir, the number of individuals that have a criminal background are Black and brown people. And I'd like to move on to Mr. Lee to talk about what are the psychological effects of having a criminal history, having a criminal record, and then compounding that with not being able to get a job, housing, or perhaps education because you have to check that box. What are the psychological effects that individuals go through?
Yeah, thanks for allowing me to be here. Let's be honest here. African Americans make up 13% of America. And out of that 13%, when we look at the African American males in particular, 50% graduate from high school. And when we look after that, how many African American males particularly goes into a CCAC community college? Out of that 50%, about half. And then you just keep going down the line, and when you get into bachelor school, it's like out of that whole population, maybe 10%. And then when you get into graduate school, we're talking about 5% or even lower get a graduate degree. That hurts. So when you have, this, I was just talking to my brother last night. He got out of prison 22 years. He's an outlier. I'm an outlier. There's a lot of African American males in here that are outliers. That's sad. It's not sad in terms of God has blessed us and we're able to persevere through. But one of my major advocacy concerns is, what about the 90% that is out there? That's where we should be focusing our energy towards. So the psychological effects of having a criminal record, first of all, we have to do a prerequisite in terms of their stress level. Most African American males will not even seek a job because of a felony conviction. That in itself, you got to understand, will permeate into other siblings and of males and females. That message will permeate into their minds, and they will do the same. So the pattern is created and it continues. We don't have an advocacy voice in our communities that will say, look, you don't have to be out here isolated and marginalized by yourself, because although many of us, this is what's so sad, many of us that may have a criminal background, we actually create an environment whereas we actually feel a part of. You got to understand the psychological realm of this. So when we feel a part of having a criminal background, what it does is that it keeps us stuck. It keeps us there. We need to show more people like this gentleman, myself, and other people who have been through that process. We need to show other ones that they do not have to be in that position and stay there. However, if there is no, like we've been talking about, if there's no sponsorships, if there's no people that have the resources, see, because we need to see, optics matter. Optics matter. We need to see UPMC, Mercy, all these other agencies that come out in the public eye, and whether it's through television, media, or whatever, to assure these gentlemen and women, people of color, that they're not alone. It's a very, and I'm just close with this, the gentleman that just got shot in Minneapolis, heart-wrenching. But when I look at him as an African-American male in the car with his daughter and his wife, and he got murdered, I was crying. What about, and he was a worker, he was a productive member of society. We need to stop focusing so much on just the ones, the outliers. We're here. We somewhat made it. What about the 90%? Nobody talks about them. Nobody. If African American males don't get included into the fold, and I suggest that I believe in about 10 to 15 years, everybody's going to say, what happened? They're going to be gone.
Right. Thank you. I'd also like to close by saying that, we need to stay in touch and keep in touch with our state legislators to know what type of legislation is on the table. Right now, I believe last month, they submitted the clean slate legislation, which will allow individuals who have criminal histories from 10 years or prior, these convictions will fall off. Whereas right now, we need ban the box because we don't have the ability in Pennsylvania for long-time criminal convictions to be removed from one's record. They have to take the initiative and the step to get a pardon, which is a 4-year process, or go through the expungement process, which costs money. So educate yourselves on that. Hopefully, if clean slate passes, we won't have need for ban the box. We still will, but it will lessen the need for it. So thank you to the panelists. Thank you so much to Allegheny County, the City of Pittsburgh, and to the Commonwealth for embracing Ban the Box to allow good people, to allow all people to have the ability to go back to work to support themselves and their families. Thank you.
All right, thank you all very much. Reminder, you have at your places, or you should, one of these evaluation forms. Please take a minute or two to fill it out before we wrap up today. There'll be volunteers from CEIR out front to collect them as you go out, but it really helps everybody involved in making the conference better every time out. We are about a half an hour behind schedule right now, so we're going to drop the Q&A section for our next group, but we definitely want to hear from them. So I'm going to ask Dr. Bullock, Stephanie Pashman, and Dennis Jablonski to come on up and grab a seat, and we're going to let each of them have an opportunity to make their presentation. I know we're going to lose Dennis. He has a hard stop at 11:45, so just to be safe, I'm going to do it in a little bit out of order in what's in your program, and I'm going to ask Dennis Jablonski from the Allegheny Conference to kick things off, and then Dr. Bullock and Stephanie Pashman can take it from there. So here with our triple presentation toward the future.
Sure.
Is that okay?
Yeah,
Dennis,
do you want us up there or here to talk?
Oh, no, you can come up here. Come up here to talk, and then you can sit back down. And if we burn through this quickly enough, we'll do a couple of questions if we have time. Dennis Jablonski.
Thanks, Bill. Good morning, everybody. Tim, once again, wherever Tim is, thank you for your steadfastness on this. This is our 5th year, and I think I've participated every year. It's good to be back with you. And I'm going to talk for a few minutes just a little bit more about an update on what the Allegheny Conference has and is planning to do on this issue, and we do have some news there. The context for this is important, and this is a bit of a reminder of things I said before, but the work that our group is doing in this area has two contexts. One is practical, and one is aspirational. The practical, which is embodied in our future of the work in the region of Pittsburgh that we released a year ago, Inflection Point, basically says the following. We don't have enough people to fill our replacement job needs, much less our growth job needs. 290,000 baby boomers will retire in this region in the next 10 years. That's 25% of the existing workforce. We conservatively estimate we'll need another 50,000 new people. That's 340,000 people in known demand. And if every kid in our K through 12 system graduates, gets the right skills, and stays here, we're still 80,000 short. And that's obviously a ridiculous assumption. So what's the solution to that from a practical perspective? We have a little acronym we use to talk about it. It's called ERA, Elevate, Retain, and Attract, and we believe that it's an all hands-on-deck solution to address that. Elevate is about identifying people in the unemployment ranks or who are highly underemployed, which Stephanie does in particular, identifying those who can, with some training, get a certificate, get themselves a job with benefits, and get themselves a job where there's a future. The trades are one of those. So an elevation strategy is very important. The second strategy is retain. This mainly focuses on college students. We graduate 40,000 kids a year from our 61 institutions of higher learning in the 10 counties of southwestern Pennsylvania. The good news is we're keeping more of them than ever before. We're keeping half, 20,000. 20,000 are leaving. That's the second piece of the strategy. The third piece of the strategy is, to the extent we can't elevate or retain, we have to go outside of the region to bring people back in. And that's the attraction piece. And the conference and its partners, including the two individuals that I'm on this stage with, are actively involved in elements of all three of that. The second part of the context is aspirational. And the point here is that while the Pittsburgh region has a great story to tell right now, our brand has probably never been better in terms of attracting businesses and attracting people. That story is not understood or happening for all people in all places. You can go to East Liberty and see an incredible transformation. Throw a stone to Homewood or Wilkinsburg and you get a completely different picture. And it's a particularly bad picture for the African American community in Pittsburgh. Whether you measure it by jobs, health, violence, crime, it's all bad, and it's a lot worse than any other group in Pittsburgh, and it's a lot worse than African American groups in other major metros. And that's something that our organization just isn't willing to live with in spite of the successes that are occurring economically here. And so, thank you. Yeah. Our board of directors, which is over 50 CEOs of the largest organizations in town, one of its members, Grant Oliphant from the Heinz Endowments, took on the responsibility to lead what we're now calling our Economic Inclusion Initiative. That group was put together last December. 16 other CEOs from the conference board volunteered to participate on that group. We spent 4 months listening. We met with literally hundreds of people from the African American community of various shapes and sizes and so forth, getting input. We made a presentation back to our board at our May board meeting. Grant made a presentation. There was unanimous consent from our board to proceed. And what that entailed is, number one, focusing on three pieces: employment, contracting, and connections. Employment, contracting, connections, things that we felt we could have an impact on. There were elements going forward, including a blessing of continuing the efforts that we already had going on in this area, which include partnerships on elevation strategies. It includes investments in some of these targeted communities by our businesses, including places like Wilkinsburg, Homewood, and Mount Oliver. It includes a continued hard work on our Regional Transportation Alliance work, a subset of which is the importance of the last mile, and how do you get people to public transit, number one, that can't get there from a half a mile or a mile away, and number two, we have all these great education programs and jobs, how do we get them there? And there's various pieces of transportation that get in the way, not the least of which, as we just heard, is a driver's license. And then finally, the internal work that we've been doing. A few years ago, we implemented a Rooney Rule at the Allegheny Conference. Small staff, 50, but we have a Rooney Rule. A year ago, we got rid of the felony box in our application process. And a year ago at this session, I made a public commitment that we would take the diversity of our staff from where it was then 10% to 20% by the end of 17. I'm happy to say that as of today, we're at 16%. So we've made progress. And I think things like the Rooney Rule have helped that, and obviously we're trying to be a model and a representative of these words in our deeds. Finally, Catherine DeLockery, Bill, and I, amongst others on our team that are working on this, made a commitment that we would work out the details of the other new things that we would do by our October board meeting. We're looking at models in places like Cincinnati, Minneapolis, Boston, a number of other places that have done pieces of this successfully. But our goal is to implement, in addition to things we're already doing, something that will positively affect employment, positively affect contracting and supplier networks, and positively affect connections, social and otherwise, for the African American community here in Pittsburgh. I will tell you that I'm in my 9th year in this job. I've never seen an issue discussed at length like this at our board meeting ever before. I've never seen a group as solidly committed to something like this as ever before, and that leads me to conclude that we are going to make progress on this in our particular part of the issue. So more to come, and look forward to reporting again next year. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Stephanie Pashman with Partner for Work, and Tim, thank you for keeping me here for 5 years and believing that we can make this happen, and I think we have a lot of great results to share. So my organization leads the workforce development system for the city of Pittsburgh and Allegheny County, and we do it by blending public and private dollars and partners to make things happen. And so the problem that we've been focused on, because we all know it and we bring it to light here every year, is that African Americans are disproportionately underrepresented in our workforce, but more importantly, they're making lower wages, and a lot of the reason they're making lower wages is because they're not elevating, as Dennis is talking about as one of his initiatives, but most importantly, they're also not as highly educated. They have lower percentage of college degrees, and more African Americans didn't even complete high school in our region than our Caucasian population. So these are issues that I take to heart, and I spend my days thinking about how we can make this happen. And so what we did in Partner for Work is go out and look at the community and see who was out there doing work, and 80 organizations told us they're in workforce development. And these organizations are all throughout the neighborhoods, and they know their neighborhoods best. So we bring them all together in what we call Pittsburgh Works. And Pittsburgh Works takes advantage of everybody sitting in those communities. And we bring resources and funding and ideas and programs, but we do it by making sure the people in the communities are activated by the people they know, their own partners, their own organizations, their own case managers. And we work with them to make sure that they can create good programs. And over the last 3 years, we've gotten about 1,000 people jobs through this, and about 40% of them are African American. So we really put our money where our mouth is in terms of our investments. We also oversee the summer internship program called Learn and Earn for the city and county, which is kicking up soon, and about 90% of the individuals in that program are African American. These are youth between the ages of 14 to 24. And about 10 to 15% of those youth last year went into programs year-round that we helped path to college. That came up from a 0% the year before. So we're really intentional at making sure that youth have career pathways and that they have opportunities to continue to move forward. And so one of the reasons that we're at the table is because we're kind of the behind-the-scenes backbone of trying to make things happen. And so please reach out to us if you're trying to work in your neighborhoods to bring people back to work, to create workforce development opportunities, and we can contribute in any way possible and bring our resources to the table. And so I think it's really critical that we have Dennis and Dr. Bullock and I on this panel today, because this is really the triumvirate of what happens. We need employers at the table to tell us where the jobs are and partner with us, and we need education and solid training programs that community college brings to bear to make that happen. And so we spend a lot of time together trying to bring these partnerships together, and we appreciate the opportunity every year for you to check in with us to see that things are working and push us to keep working harder. So thank you very much.
Good morning. Just my eyes. Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to share with you some of the things that the Community College of Allegheny County is doing to enhance the lives of all of the individuals who are fortunate to call southwestern Pennsylvania their home. With the college's emphasis on providing industry-relevant academic and career training, Community College of Allegheny County continues to develop and refine programs designed to create highly responsive and technologically savvy regional workforce fully equipped with the knowledge and skills necessary to successfully compete in today's increasingly complex global marketplace. With more than 160 associate degrees, certificates, diplomas, and transfer program offerings available across 6 broad industry sectors: the arts and humanities, business, education, social and behavioral sciences and human services, health, STEM, and skilled trades, and nearly 45,000 students taking classes every year, the Community College of Allegheny County is well placed to make a significant impact on the region's economic prosperity. Thanks to the college's strong partnerships with business and industry, numerous professional organizations, and the region's trade unions, CCAC is able to provide curriculum and training that addresses specific industry needs, and for some programs, provide a direct pipeline to employment opportunities for our graduates. For example, of the college's 29 programs offered in skilled trades and energy technologies, many are offered as apprenticeship programs. These students are able to earn college credits and gain critical hands-on experience while earning a paycheck, and then often have a job waiting for them upon graduation. A similar situation exists with students enrolled in CCAC's nursing and healthcare programs, with graduates often landing full-time positions following their clinical and field work. In other instances, the Community College of Allegheny County's ability to quickly respond to industry trends and emerging technologies has enabled the college to be the first to offer programs in the growing field. Just recently, the college began offering data analytics technology, associate's degree program, the first college in the state to do so. Another new CCAC program, the Anesthesiology Technologist Associate's Degree Program, is one of only 8 in the country that provides training in this highly demanded occupation. Sometimes the community college is the only institution to offer a particular program. For example, CCAC offers the only paramedic associate's degree program in Western Pennsylvania and the only court reporting associate's degree program in the state. It is not difficult to imagine how critical the community college is to the development of future workers in these professions. And when the demand for a particular program is at its peak, the college will often come up with ways to increase access to training, either by adding new training locations or by adding additional classes, often at non-traditional hours. Our popular HVAC and welding programs both benefited from this approach, with the HVAC classes being offered at the Energy Innovation Center, and students are now taking midnight welding classes at our West Hill location. Another way for the community college is to help increase access through articulation agreements. In addition to saving students up to $57,000 during their 2 years of college, these agreements enable our students to seamlessly transfer into more than 160 programs offered at 49 other colleges and universities, including our 14 PASHE colleges. And in order to encourage high school students and to attend college, we've entered into a 2+2+2 partnership with the University of Pittsburgh and Pittsburgh Public Schools, which enables Pittsburgh Public School students to network and to build vital relationships on both the CCAC and Pitt campuses. In yet another effort to capture the interest of these future students, the community college continues to work with area high schools to expose students to new educational options, including offering high school students taking advanced placement and honors classes the opportunity to enroll in CCAC's dual enrollment courses. When speaking about access, it's important to remember that perhaps more than any other college or university in the region, CCAC is a college for all members of the community. CCAC, like other community colleges across the nation, has a higher percentage of first-generation college students, as well as students requiring academic, financial, and other assistance. Because of this, the community college continues to seek out and secure new funding sources for programs that will expand opportunities for all students. Some of these programs include the college's in-school and out-of-school youth program, which was funded by the Three Rivers Workforce Investment Board, now known as Partners for Work, to provide in-school opportunities in GED classes, as well as the micro-credential programs, which trains out-of-school youth, adults, and low-skill basic skills, and individuals who are underemployed or unemployed for high-priority occupations. Another very valuable program currently underway is the Health Professions Opportunity Pathway to Success healthcare program, which provides education and training in nursing, emergency medicine and medical records, health information technology, and low-income and underserved individuals. One of the college's main recruitment goals is to increase enrollment of the temporary assistance of needy family recipients in the region. Programs like these three that I just cited are excellent examples of the power that the public and private funding has in helping to provide truly transformative education, especially when it helps to lift individuals out of poverty. Because our students come from a diverse range of backgrounds with an equally diverse range of interests and abilities, the community college offers a full complement of programs and wraparound services designed to ensure students succeed. For academically gifted students, CCAC offers honors program degrees and courses, as well as the opportunity to immerse themselves in learning experiences outside the classroom. For students who may require additional academic assistance, the community college offers a host of learning supports, including access to student success coaches, individual mentoring opportunities, and math cafes, learning commons, where students can seek help with math, writing, and reading. Studies have shown that these types of supports foster student success, with students receiving highest test scores and grades, particularly those students who visit these facilities 3 or more times in a semester. In addition to general assistance, CCAC offers services aimed to help specific student populations. With one of the state's largest number of enrolled veterans, our military veteran services centers provide help with the VA educational services of interest to veterans and their families. We also offer supports aimed at increasing the retention, campus and community engagement, academic success of students of color through our Men of Merit initiative and Women's on a Mission. Another group of students that critically need assistance but who have often been overlooked in the past are those individuals who have been incarcerated. Because of this, the college provides the necessary support to help them re-enter society by reaching out with the aim of presenting CCAC as a welcoming environment. As a founding member of the Allegheny County Anchored Reentry Consortium, also known as ACAR, the college works with the like-minded agencies and organizations such as Partners for Work, the Allegheny County Jail Collaborative, and renewal centers to help these individuals identify programs that will fit their interests and skill sets, and most importantly, that will enable them to find gainful employment. In addition to identifying employer-friendly careers, we also help these individuals with career counseling, job placement opportunities, as well as to help them determine which financial aid programs may be open to them. Many reentrants choose to enroll in our culinary arts, business, CIT, and skilled trades programs. And lastly, one of the college's most well-received services to date has been the the campus's cupboard food pantry at our South Campus and our pop-up food pantries at the college's Allegheny and Boyce campuses. During our 2016 year, the South Campus food pantry served 106 individuals during nearly 250 visits. This service has been provided vitally to students struggling to survive and to provide food to their families. So as you can see, as the president of the Community College of Allegheny County, I can tell you that there is nothing more satisfying and humbling than knowing you are providing the help that is needed to so many individuals who are trying to find a way into the workplace and to earn a competitive wage. And this is only possible when as a society we make access to education a priority. Because if there is anything we have learned through the years, it's that education is the key to opening so many doors in life. And just knowing the work everyone in this room is doing to ensure that all individuals have the opportunity to attend college gives me hope that the future of education in this region together will make a difference in everyone in the region. Thank you very much.
Thanks to the three of you. To keep us on time, we were going to drop the Q&A, so you are all free. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Got us almost back on time, and we want to make sure we save some time for Max King's 10-minute closing remarks tonight. I'm told it's a real this afternoon, because this morning, I guess it's still morning. I'm told it's a real stem winder, and everybody's going to want to stay to hear Max's closing remarks this morning. So, to that end, we're going to do the next section on new initiatives for diversity, equity, and inclusion as a kind of lightning round. And I'm going to ask our panelists to just pound right through it and tell us what they're up to, and so we can hear about some really exciting things that are going on. So I'd like to just invite up here and grab a quick seat Dina Clark, Head of Diversity and Inclusion at Covestro, Brian Oglesby, Strategic Relationships with the Eastern Minority Supplier Development Council, Kevin Farah, the founding partner of Farah Executive Search, and Susan Yohe, the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer at Buchanan, Ingersoll and Rooney, retired. She's also with the Pittsburgh Legal Diversity and Inclusion Coalition. We are going to kick this thing off with a brief Airport Authority video. We've been talking a lot about the airport today. We're going to kick it off with a brief video from the airport, and then Dina, you can just take it from there, and we'll go in order as they're listed here on the agenda. All right, let's roll the videotape.
How are you? Brian.
Dina, nice to meet you.
From the ticket counter to the tarmac, there's a diverse team who contribute to each and every takeoff. And here at the Allegheny County Airport Authority, we are dedicated to helping create the next generation of aviation professionals by aligning our region's children with the careers, job interests, and skill sets needed to be successful in the aviation industry. In 2013, our Ready for Takeoff program grew out of a corporate equity and inclusion roundtable initiative that was aimed at overcoming workforce diversity challenges. We wanted to take a step from well-meaning to well-doing, so we developed this unique and progressive job shadowing community program aimed at African American youth.
It allows us to bring in kids from traditionally underserved communities and expose them to different careers that are prevalent in the aviation industry that they might not know about otherwise.
We very much want really good and smart and interested and engaged kids to consider careers in aviation.
As part of the program, students have the opportunity to job shadow aviation professionals for a day and get an exclusive, behind-the-scenes look at the many types of jobs and services offered by a major metropolitan airport. During this year's job shadowing event, our community partners Westinghouse Academy and Homewood Children's Village brought 15 8th graders to observe the daily activities of our air traffic controllers, our law enforcement officers, and our airline partners Delta and Southwest. They saw firsthand how baggage handlers load luggage onto an aircraft, how flight crew prepare for a flight, how air traffic controllers direct planes on and off the runway, and even observed how police and a K-9 officer inspect a suspicious suitcase.
Kids are usually very excited about the Ready for Takeoff program. They love seeing the police officers, the pilots.
And we actually got to get on an airplane. That was my first time, and we got to sit in first class, and they served us.
I learned that air traffic control is the reason why planes get to their destinations of where they go, and they keep track of where other planes are so they won't run into each other.
We went to go see the airplanes and how they work and what they did when they first landed and how they took off.
If you look at the airport, an airport's a microcosm of a community or maybe of a city. An airport has a public works department. It has a police department. It has professionals, engineers, planners, safety experts, human resource, you name it. So by us allowing a job shadowing program to exist, not only does a youngster understand what jobs are available at an airport, but it's also a career. Because an engineer at an airport is an engineer at any particular company, whether it's public or private.
So it gets them thinking about jobs that they want to do in the future and gets them really excited about what different career paths they can take here at the airport.
This is one great program. Hopefully it'll just open their eyes to all the different options that are available.
Well, if I could work at the airport, I would want to be the person who did the tickets and help with the luggage because it looked interesting and it looked fun.
If I could have any job at the airport, I would be doing air traffic control because I like the technology they use.
If I worked at the airport, I would want to be a flight attendant because they get to go different places and meet different people.
Next year, these students will have the opportunity to become mentors to the new group of 8th graders entering the program. Our hope is that by providing a memorable job shadowing experience, these students will develop an appreciation for and an interest in the aviation industry that will one day grow into a career.
You know, we're hoping that these kids get their interest sparked and that this continues to grow with them and keep them on track to pursue careers in these fields when they enter the workforce.
It's all part of our continuing commitment to the community to increase diversity in the Pittsburgh area workforce.
It's important because we're embodying what we do best, that's giving to the community and showing the youngsters the opportunity they have at their own airport.
We also get to give back to the community, and we get to get engaged with the community in a very real way that benefits our workforce and lets people here understand that we're serving passengers and the community at large.
With the support of our airline partners, law enforcement agencies, aeronautical tenants, and local government and businesses, this program will continue to grow and give more students the opportunity to be ready for takeoff.
Good morning. My name is Dina Clark, and I'm head of diversity and inclusion at Covestro LLC. For those of you who may not be familiar with our company, we are based in Robinson as our North American headquarters, but our global headquarters are in Leverkusen, Germany. And for those of you who may have seen, if you've been to the airport lately, a lot of airport talk again, we're that huge, colorful circle on the Bayer campus. You might see us, so if you're nearby, stop. I'm here to talk a little bit about my role and some of the things that we're excited about doing with diversity and inclusion. And it's somewhat unique. Those of you, I know many of you in the room, and I'm excited to see familiar faces. My background is nonprofit. And I profess that I would never defect to corporate because I was very passionate about doing civil rights, social justice work. But there's something happening at Covestro. We're not there yet, but we're moving, and I wanted to be able to share that. The first and foremost thing is when you look at diversity and inclusion efforts, a lot of people, whether you're in a corporation or a university or a school district, there are some key pieces. They're almost like the ABCs of diversity and inclusion. And we tend to focus on our workforce, workplace, and marketplace. That's not unique to Covestro, and certainly not unique to the industry, but it's there. So our people, our market, and our environment. And it doesn't matter if you're in the United States or if you're overseas. Those are three things that everybody has to focus on: people, market, and environment. But when we looked at what we're doing here, so much of this depends on relationships. And there are four main areas that I got permission to share with you that we have moved forward with our diversity and inclusion strategy to make it deeper than those three areas. First, we're focusing on our business alignment.
Many of diversity and inclusion efforts stop at mid-level management. Not because there's not intent, there's usually professed commitment at the top, there's usually typical diversity at entry level, it's mid-level that there's a blocker. And it's not necessarily limited to just diversity. So we are consciously making sure that our mid-level management is engaged. And part of that commitment, and I apologize, but our CEO, or excuse me, our president couldn't be here today. His name's Jerry McCleary. But he and I are co-leading our Covestro Inclusion Council, which is his direct reports. What he did was when I first started, he said, "What do you need?" I said, "Do you want me to do this for fun, or do you want me to do this for real?" I said, "Because I'm capable of doing both." And he said, "Well, for real." And I said, "Well, here's what I'm going to need. I'm going to need your support. I'm going to need to break down barriers." And one of the things that he started doing is clearing his direct reports. He's meeting with his direct reports once a month. And as a result of that, I'm able to meet with them, find out what they're doing in the business areas, and hold them accountable to what I need in terms of diversity and inclusion, so it's a true partnership. And we're small enough to do that because we're business to business here, but that was something that was huge. Also, we're starting to engage other areas of the business. The second area is our internal and external engagement, which really connects to our culture. And a lot of people throw around the terminology culture, but what does it actually look like when you're talking about engagement? I cannot tell you how many times, and I laughed because actually we were attending one of your events, Doris, and he said, he said, "Would you like me to come?" I said, "Absolutely." I said, "But do me a favor," and I'd only been there 2 months. I said, "Don't round up all the black people to come to the session. Find out who's actually interested." And we have done a lot of different things in terms of engaging our employees. We have skills-based volunteering as well, which is part of an initiative connected to Robert Morris University. Supplier diversity is also a commitment of ours, and Jerry did speak at the African American Chamber Breakfast earlier this year and made a commitment there, as well as talent acquisition, retention, and development, which you've heard a lot about. Those 4 areas in connection to the strategy are critical. 3 points that I just want to make, so I know we're short on time. None of these approaches can be cookie cutter. You can't lift them out and just place them into your organization. You really have to find out what the right fit is and how those key pieces are interpreted in your organization. It has to be connected to building relationships, not just showing up to a dinner that you were invited to, but how are you engaging with the people that are there? For that, I could pay $5,000 or $10,000 sponsorship to talk to those people for free at work. What can you do with those sessions? Also making sure that you leverage your professional relationships and where you are strategic about in terms of sponsorships and donations. And this is, again, from a corporate perspective. Make sure senior team managers and leaders are involved. And one thing that is really critical, I heard data analytics mentioned earlier. If you can't tell your story through data, it's difficult to measure impact. And one of the things we are not only doing is we have 2 data analytics positions, but we are measuring our growth. We're not setting a target per se and measuring a deficit of where we'd like to be. That's conscious for us, but we're reporting where we've evolved from when it comes to diversity. That way you're not only able to measure your growth, but you're looking at it in a positive light, and that helps build momentum to keep people involved. And I'll close with at Covestro, diversity is our strength, inclusion is our commitment, and innovation is our direction. Thank you.
Round 2 of the lightning round. Hi, my name is Brian Oglesby. On behalf of our corporate members, our MBEs that we certify, and our President and CEO, Valerie Cofield, I'd like to thank you for allowing EMSDC to speak to you about what we're trying to do to assist. Full disclosure, I'm a Philadelphian by birth. But my mother is originally from Rankin, PA, so this is my second home. I spent a lot of summers here. Still a fan of the teams on the other side of the state, but I have a little love for you guys too. So it's always welcome to be here. One of the things that the Eastern Minority Supplier Development Council is doing, and just to be brief, we certify MBEs in the tri-state region of New Jersey, Delaware, and Pennsylvania, including Pittsburgh, and we have an office here in Pittsburgh as well as in Philadelphia. What we try to do is certify those MBEs and connect them to our corporate members to create greater opportunity. So there's a lot of synergy and a lot of messages in the room, and also we're talking about workforce investment, ban the box, which is a big issue in the other parts of the region. Workforce investment, as a veteran of Philadelphia Works in Philadelphia, it was good to see my former counterparts in the Three Rivers area discuss workforce in relation to the work being done. What we're trying to do at EMSDC is called a target connection strategy initiative. And what we're trying to do is take the MBEs that we develop, and we do develop and certify, and I've heard conversations about getting more MBEs developed, and that's what we do. We certify you, we develop you, we provide you with supports. As in our targeted connection strategy initiative, the CSI, we try to get MBEs to target three industries, no more than 3 industries for their work in terms of what type of business they're trying to gain. We assign a connections partner, which in some cases will be me, to help them develop their resources, get a sense of where they need to be as an MBE in order to get in front of the corporate members. Also engaging corporate members to seek out MBEs and provide them with adequate MBEs that are going to provide the work. We also want to make sure that we're having quarterly meetings to discuss activities and deliverables in their training and development, and doing an assessment of the ability of an organization to grow. If I have an MBE and I have a large contract, I have to know as an MBE what it takes to get that contract, doing the proper bidding, having the proper bonding, having the proper financial structure, having the proper corporate structure. Thank you. And we want to make sure that all of our partners, and especially our corporate members, are giving face time to the MBEs, because we try to have as many corporate members as possible. We have several large corporate members in the area. I think some of the representatives are in the room. And what we want to make sure of in this entire process is that we engage every aspect of economic development within this region, within this city, and making sure that the MBEs are plugged into these processes. In closing, I just want to make sure I answer. We are trying to target specific industry groups: construction, energy, petrochemical, biopharma, healthcare, banking, finance and insurance, and IT solutions, and any emerging markets that are coming into play in this particular region, both geographically and economically, with an extended global reach. We want to make sure that not only are we seeking opportunities here, but reaching out to other places. And EMSDC is part of the National Minority Supply Development Council, which has 23 councils throughout the nation. And we want to make sure that we're connected to those councils as well, to make sure the reach of opportunity doesn't just sit here, but sits in a more national and global reach as well. So we try to coalesce as many opportunities as possible. How am I doing on time? Okay, I'm short on time. Thank you very much. EMSDC, I have plenty of cards. We can talk more after this. Lightning round 2 ended.
Not at the end yet, but almost. I'm going to try to do this in 3 minutes. So just as we're getting set up here, I wanted to tell everyone that I'm very proud to be here. Actually, this is a return for me because I'm a graduate of Duquesne University, 2002 from the business school. Yeah. And for the past year, I have actually been bragging when the school comes up that I go to the school that has the best men's basketball program in the city. But I'm going to change it. I'm going to say that they host the best conference, and it's this conference. This is really, this is a personal thing for me. I'm very passionate about diversity, and I'll take you through why. So when I graduated from Duquesne, I was never on an airplane. From Pittsburgh, but really didn't know that I even spoke differently, that there was someone that could root for another team but a Pittsburgh team, which shocks me still to this day. 15 years later, I've recruited from 60 countries. I've lived in 3 of them. My journey started here in Pittsburgh, recruiting at a time, believe it or not, 2002, if you could imagine, there was no social media. The way I recruited healthcare professionals at the time, I had to call the state of Pennsylvania to get them to send me a list of registered nurses, their home addresses, then I had to send them snail mail, or call their landline and hopefully not get crazy Uncle Eddie or an answering machine. So recruitment was quite challenging. So I was an early adopter of technology as it became available. And technology really, in the past 15 years, has shifted the way we as consumers digest information in general. So I'm going to go really quickly through here because I started to do a lot of recruitment basically all over the world for universities, hospital systems, and governments. So Georgetown University and Cleveland Clinic were some of the bigger projects that I led. Cleveland Clinic in Abu Dhabi, for those of you that aren't familiar, Cleveland Clinic is 2 hours away from here and has about 50,000 employees that work there. I worked on the project in Abu Dhabi at a time where we were a construction site, and I had to recruit 3,000 people from 60 countries, clinical and non-clinical, some of the best clinicians in the world, and I had to get them to move their entire families to a place that, from a perception standpoint, wasn't necessarily considered safe, wasn't necessarily considered legally compliant with malpractice or other things that people would be familiar with. And I had to make a compelling enough argument to get individuals to believe in something that wasn't an operating facility yet. So I used a lot of storytelling, a lot of concepts that I actually learned at Duquesne University. I was a marketing major. And so I'll show you through a business case study what it looks like. So this is actually a search they just did this past year for George Mason University. And if you can't read what you see here, don't worry. This is actually how they were advertising the job for a marketeer. This is for a vice president of communications and marketing role. And printed out, this is 5 pages long. Try looking at this on your phone. You just won't. So unfortunately, even though the rest of the world is kind of caught up when it comes to how they sell their product or service, HR or recruitment hasn't necessarily adopted, in all cases, those same visual techniques. So let me show you what I did for them. Thank you. So it's not live now because I successfully completed the search, but right at that point you would have the ability to go to a one-click apply, which connects you to your LinkedIn feed. In the total time it would take you to watch that video and apply for the job, you can do it in under 2 minutes. Compare that with an applicant tracking system that your company might force candidates to use today, and most likely it's taking 20 to 30 minutes. Now imagine you're a passive candidate, and guess what? The best candidates are passive candidates. They have jobs. They don't have the time to go and find this out and necessarily apply for your position. I also don't believe that they need to know me. I would love to get to know all of you, but the reality is there are billions of people out there that have professional skill sets. I want to be able to tell a story that wants them to engage with the institution that they potentially would work with. So I'll just take a couple seconds here just to show you the back end of how I set this up. So if you're not familiar, this is a social graph on Facebook. Actually, everyone has access to it. In the top left, I'm picking titles that are either lateral moves for people or a promotional opportunity. I'm using Boolean logic, that's just the AND operator here, to combine it with ethnic affinity on the bottom, because they were looking for diversity in this position. It gives me a potential reach on the right-hand side of 7,000 people that I know that I'm going to target. And here are the results. I know that I've reached 60% women. I can break it down, slice and dice it in so many different ways. I can also control my costs. Those of you that recruit in higher education, oftentimes you'll hear we place an ad in the Chronicle of Higher Education. That's a sunk cost. It's in print. I can change this in real time if it's not working. But the last thing I want to point out to you guys is the bottom. This was viewed 14,000 times, if you see on the top left, by 5,000 of the 7,000 that I was targeting. On the bottom, if you can't read it, only 6% watched that video through a traditional desktop. So if your advertisement doesn't speak to people for a job on their cell phone, you're going to miss a lot of candidates. So as you start to see opportunities change and you start to see potentially the need to diversify your candidate pool, Start at the root of the problem. Look at how you're actually communicating to folks about opportunities that are available to you. I think my time is up. We're located here right in Market Square, so always around and happy to come back to Duquesne anytime. Thanks, guys.
All right, you three were great. We actually did the lightning round. That is really cool. Yeah. And I'm sending apologies on behalf of Susan Yohe, who knew she was going to be dicey about getting here in time for the program. And I guess she couldn't make it. So, but thanks to Susan for making the effort anyway. So before I turn things over to Max King for our closing remarks and then back to Tim to just wrap things up, I'd like to thank all of you for allowing me to help facilitate this program again today. It's been fun, all 5 years. I mentioned that the Allegheny Conference first took up this issue almost 50 years ago, and that's far too long to be working on this. I mean, I work for an organization that's not afraid to take on a project that'll take a generation to resolve. So the first big one was cleaning up the environment from the 40s through the 70s. And then from the 80s until about now, we were working on rebuilding the economy. And the conference has really set an objective for the next generation, and that's our people and population objective, feeling that the number one issue our community faces is having enough people, enough prepared people to do all the work that's going to get done. And I would say we can't afford to let that be another generation of effort. We've already been at this far too long. So hopefully we can pick up the pace as we deal with our people and our equity and inclusion issues and make a big difference much, much faster than we have to this point. And so it is in that spirit that I'm very proud to turn things over to the president of the Pittsburgh Foundation, Maxwell King.
Thanks very much, Bill. And thank you, Tim, and everybody here for giving me the opportunity to speak to you at the end of your conference. It's an honor to be here. I want to tell you a story. I'll keep it short, and then draw a couple of conclusions from that. I first moved to Pittsburgh back in 1999 to go to work at the Heinz Endowments, and one of the first assignments I got was to speak at the opening of the new O'Reilly Theater on Penn Avenue. Teresa Heinz was to speak there, but she had a conflict and she asked me to step in. For those of you who've been to the O'Reilly Theater, you know that in front of the stage there are rows and rows and rows of seats, and then on either side of the stage there's a couple of rows of seats. And they seated the speakers on the side beside the stage. And the lights were such that they shone in our eyes, and we couldn't see out in the audience. We couldn't see anybody who was out there to hear our remarks. Savion Glover was dancing on the stage, and it was thrilling to be right within feet of Savion Glover while he performed. When he was done, I went up to the podium, and then the lights were at a different angle, and I could suddenly see there were about 400 people in the audience, and I could see everybody there. And I said to myself, holy shit, there are no people of color in this audience. And as I gave the speech, I tried to count, and I think I only found 12 or 14 people of color in the audience. And I came from Philadelphia, and for all of the problems and the struggles in Philadelphia, everywhere you go there, it's diverse. Every restaurant, every event, every conference, every party, every meeting, you're with a diverse group. So I went back to the Heinz Endowments to talk to the staff, and I said, what exactly is going on here? And they said, well, Pittsburgh has got a long history of being very segregated, of not being diverse, not being inclusive, and that's the way it's been for a long time. And I said, well, who's working on this? And they mentioned BPEP, they mentioned the NAACP, which Tim was running, I think, at that time. They mentioned the Urban League, and I said, no, I'm not talking about those groups. What foundations are working on this? What large institutions that have got a lot of money are working on this? And they said, well, really, it's pretty much the Pittsburgh Foundation. Jerry Kay, who was the program officer there, was passionate about issues of race and inclusion and opportunity and equity. So I went over to talk to her, and she gave me a lesson in Pittsburgh demographics that has never left me, on the statistics on income, wealth, health, housing, opportunity. Over the years, the Pittsburgh Foundation and the Heinz Endowments worked on a number of programs together. Did we make a difference? I think we made a little bit of a difference. We did not make enough of a difference at all. Fast forward, I retired. My wife and I moved to New England to be with our grandchildren. And then in 2014, 6 years after we had left the community, we had a chance to come back. We both missed Pittsburgh. I missed working, so I came back to the Pittsburgh Foundation. And I encountered two really interesting things. One, although I saw a little bit more diversity in the nonprofit community, in the rest of the community, things had not advanced. In the corporate community, things, as has been said in this conference earlier, had probably gone backwards. And so what I encountered was maybe a little bit of progress, maybe a few more people, like people at the Allegheny Conference. We're talking about inclusion, we're talking about social equity, but by and large, things hadn't changed much. And I encountered something else, really, really interesting, that I think most of the people in this room know, but it was a surprise to me. And that was everybody I talked to in the African American community, people that I was working with, people that I met, people that I had known before when I was here, had exactly the same perspective. They were angry, they were impatient, they were frustrated, and universally, the attitude was, it's been going on for decades and things have not materially changed. It is not advancing. I don't mean to be a downer, but we haven't made the progress that we should have made. And it reminded me of the 1960s when I was in college and the Civil Rights Act was being passed through Congress. It was 10 years after the Supreme Court Brown v. Board decision, and there were race riots in major cities all over America. And my wife and I, who were in college together, went to hear a speech by Dr. Martin Luther King at a church in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And after the speech was over, there were a bunch of people from the press there. And one of the reporters raised his hand and said, Dr. King, how can there be race riots all over the United States? What do your people, he did say your people, what do your people want? The Civil Rights Act is passed, Brown v. Board was taken, people are talking about race and talking about diversity and inclusion. And I do not remember the exact words that Dr. King used, but I do remember what he said, the lesson. I remember it vividly. What he said was, if you make the promise, you have to keep the promise. Things will get worse. Things will get more frustrating. Things will get more angry if you make the promise and you don't keep the promise. And that's what he described he was seeing in America then. A country that was making a promise through the Civil Rights Act, Brown v. Board, through other kinds of programs, and was not keeping the promise. Things were not changing for people in the African American community. 50 years later, here in Pittsburgh today, that's where I think we are. We're making the promise. I applaud the Allegheny Conference for its focus on diversity and inclusion, the foundations, the nonprofits, the academic institutions, political leaders are talking about it. Things are not changing in a significant way in terms of opportunity in the black community. And I will say this in wrapping it up. We will be judged by this. As a community, we will be judged by this. The latest renaissance that we're in now is wonderful and exciting. Young people are moving here. Companies are moving here. There's a thriving tech economy. It's exciting in Oakland and downtown. It's part of why we wanted to come back to Pittsburgh. But this renaissance will not be a success. It will not lead to what we believe our community is going to be, can be, must be, unless we keep the promise, unless we make a real difference on diversity and inclusion. We have the ability here in Pittsburgh to do that. And it's great to be with all of you today, this morning in this conference, because you're committed, and this community, I hope and trust, will be committed to keeping the promise. Thank you so very much.
We're going to be out of here in a moment. Would you please give Mr. King a big hand for telling the truth? Yeah, we're going to be out of here. First of all, don't forget in the back of your program there are flyers, handouts, the SHARE initiative that was created out of the corporate equity, led by UPMC. Tony Silva's in the house. Please look at what's happening with that. Those are concrete results. We want to thank all of our sponsors. Give them a hand, please. All of our sponsors. We're going to bring up my friend from the Pittsburgh Jewish Federation, who's worked very, very closely with us. Thank you. Barry Nathan, Josh Sales, Laura Schoener. Come on up. Come on up, Barry. The Jewish Federation has been our key underwriter from the very first year, has never left our side, and we want to acknowledge that as we provide this or give this to them. As you can see, give special thanks to the Urban Affairs Foundation and the Community Relations Council of the Jewish Federation of Greater Pittsburgh for being the primary underwriter of corporate equity and inclusion for each of our 5 years. So please give them a hand. Give them a quick reminder about the green slips. You have to earn that.
So Tim asked me to talk about make sure you do the green thing. So I want to mention 2 themes that came up today: measurement and intentionality. We cannot improve this conference without knowing your feedback. So we need you to fill that out. That's measurement. Intentionality is you need to do it. So please take the time and complete it and turn it in where?
In the back, or our volunteers are in the back near the doors and also on the counter.
Thank you.
The registration table. Hold still if you will. Thank you. Give them another hand as they get the board back up, the sponsorship board. Again, we want to thank all of our sponsors who for the first year are with us. Duquesne University has hosted this every year. PNC Bank provided the Richard A. Stewart Jr. breakfast. He was unhappy last year we didn't have a full breakfast, so we call the Richard A. Stewart Jr. breakfast. PNC, the Allegheny County, the University, he loves it. University of Pittsburgh, Port Authority. The, what's the bank, Barry? Barry, what's the name of the bank? I can't read this. First, what is it? Federal Home Loan Bank. You get bigger letters here last time. Thank you very much. I'm old. Bynum's Communication for all the great work that they did assisting. And my friend had to leave. Deb Sadowski, this thing would not be at the level it was without her. She had to leave. Her mom has been ill for some time, and she got a call that she needs to get home. And she has been a right arm to me. You have no idea how many communications we have back and forth, particularly the last several days. We also had support this year from the Allegheny County Airport Authority, United Way, and Workforce Pittsburgh. We want to thank them for, we also had the university, not the university, but Ruth Bird Smith and the diversity from our county giving some support. Obviously, Maxwell King and the Pittsburgh Foundation has been assisting us this past couple years with overall financial support wherever we may be a little low. City of Pittsburgh, Allegheny County has been our partner, and the Allegheny Conference has been our partner every year. And why don't we have all the volunteers from corporate equity please stand, and please give them a hand, because we have been having numerous meetings. You don't pull this off by a minute or two. Really great people. And the best MC in Pittsburgh for any event of this nature is Mr. Bill Flanagan. So listen, I think it's time to go, but I saw this in my little office in the basement. A friend of mine gave this to me at Mayview State Hospital, and I had a little difficult moment. Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for the evidence of things not seen. Hebrews 11:1. What we are doing is working on things not yet seen, Mr. King, but we will see it if we're intentional, as Barry said. If we have the commitment to it, we will do it. My brain just went out, my friend. You know when you get old, your brain, please. Josh, help me. My brain just went out. What? His name? Skip Grinberg from the Pittsburgh Federation of Greater Pittsburgh. We will never get another dollar again. Esther Bush is terrible when you get old. Your brain goes dry. But have you had a powerful day? Do you have a powerful morning? Thank you all so much. And it seems like you don't want to go, and that's great. But go forward with a commission to do, and let's do it well. I was told the Pittsburgh Passion, we didn't let them celebrate when we talked about those forthcoming efforts on making Pittsburgh great. Thank you so much. Hope to see everybody next year. Bye-bye.